Something changed in your body last night, not a thought, not a decision. Nothing you can trace to a moment when you chose it or caused it or made it happen through intention. Something shifted in your physical body, in the way your chest sits, in the weight behind your sternum, in the quality of your breath when you woke up this morning, and you are still trying to figure out what that was. You are not imagining it. You are not making it up. You are not projecting or spiraling or confusing your own nervous system noise for something real. Something happened in you, something specifically physical. And your mind is still 3 days behind it. That gap, the gap between what your body has already processed and what your conscious mind has not yet caught up to, is exactly what this video is about. Because the full moon in Scorpio that peaked last night, May 1st, is not a mental event. It is a somatic one. It moves through the body before it moves through the mind. And if you have been feeling something in your physical body this week that you cannot quite explain or articulate, something that lives in your throat or your chest or the base of your spine or the place between your shoulder blades where tension has been quietly accumulating for months, that is not coincidence. That is the body moving first. If you feel it, if there is something in your physical experience right now that you cannot fully name, but that is undeniably there, leave a like and subscribe so you do not miss what comes next. Drop the words "my body knows" in the comments, because what is happening in you right now is ahead of where your understanding currently is. And what this video is going to do is give your mind the language to catch up. There is something you need to know about what your chart is actually showing right now, not general patterns, not what is happening for twin flames collectively. What is written in your specific birth moment, in the exact degrees that were rising when you arrived, in the placement of your Venus and your moon and the nodes of your soul's direction. The current sky is pressing directly on that structure in ways that are unique to your chart and to your connection. Before we go any further, I want to talk about the personal readings that I am offering currently. A twin flame union personal reading is built from your exact coordinates. Your name, your date of birth, your time of birth, your place of birth. What the universe is currently orchestrating between you. What karmic contracts are active, what the Scorpio full moon is doing specifically to your connection and to him. None of that lives in a general framework. It lives in your chart alone. Your personal audio reading and detailed written report will be in your inbox within 48 hours. Not guidance written for everyone. The precise map of your connection pulled from the stars that were present at your specific moment of becoming. The link is in the description below. Okay, let's get back to the video. Today the moon is in Scorpio. Yesterday, May 1st, it reached its full illumination at 11 degrees 20 minutes of Scorpio, exactly opposing the sun at 11 degrees 20 minutes of Taurus. That opposition is still in full effect as you watch this. The full moon does not switch off when the peak passes. Its energy is active and pressing for several days on either side. You are inside it right now. What makes this particular full moon significant is not just the sign, though Scorpio alone would be enough to make this intense. It is the configuration surrounding it. Pluto in Aquarius is squaring both the sun and the moon, creating a pressure that pushes on the deepest layer rather than the surface. Venus in Gemini is forming a precise sextile to Saturn in Aries. And Saturn and Venus are both quincunx. That is to say, in a fated, uncomfortable adjustment aspect to the Scorpio moon itself. Together, these 3 points form a yod, a rare configuration that astrologers associate with turning points, with fated redirections, with the specific feeling that something is being asked of you that cannot be avoided by staying in the middle. At the apex of that yod is the moon in Scorpio, and the moon in Scorpio rules the body. The body's deep knowing, the body's underwater processing, the body's capacity to feel and store and metabolize what the conscious mind refuses to approach directly. Mercury entered Taurus this morning. Mercury rules the mind, the thinking function, the way information travels through your awareness. Taurus is the slowest, most body-oriented sign in the zodiac. It moves through sensation rather than thought. It learns through what can be felt, touched, tasted, sensed in the physical dimension. Mercury in Taurus turns the mind's attention downward into the body, into the slow and patient intelligence that lives below the level of analysis. What that means for you, right now, in this specific window of sky, is that the most intelligent processing happening in your system is not occurring in your head. It is occurring below your neck. In the places your body has been quietly working on this connection long after your conscious mind decided it was tired of thinking about it. Your body never got tired. It never stopped. And right now, under this sky, it is surfacing everything it has been holding. Peter Levine spent decades studying what the body does with experience that is too large or too threatening for the conscious mind to process in real time. He called the resulting field somatic experiencing, a framework built around the understanding that the body stores what the mind sidesteps, and that the material stored in the body has to be released through the body rather than through understanding alone. What Levine discovered, through years of clinical work, was that traumatic or overwhelmingly intense experience does not primarily live in memory. It does not live in the story the person tells about what happened. It lives in the body as activation, as energy that was mobilized for a response that could not complete, as tension patterns, breath patterns, holding patterns that the nervous system organized during the intense experience and then kept organized long after the experience itself had passed. The experience you had when you first recognized this person, the specific and disorienting quality of that recognition, the way your body responded before your mind had any language for what was happening, was an overwhelming experience in Levine's sense. Not traumatic necessarily, but too large for real-time processing. Too much. And the portion of that could not be metabolized in the moment was stored, held in the body in the specific places where your particular system tends to hold things. The chest. Then the belly, the hips, the place at the back of the neck where your head meets your spine. It has been there since then, not causing you harm exactly, not sabotaging you, simply stored, waiting for the conditions that would allow its release. And the conditions that allow somatic release are very specific. They are not intellectual. They are not the result of understanding the connection more completely or having more information about what he is doing or feeling. They are the result of a particular kind of settling in the body, a coming into the present moment at the level of physical sensation, a shift in the nervous system's assessment of the current situation from the implicit threat that has been running in the background since this journey began to something closer to, if not safety exactly, then at least a momentary reduction in vigilance. The Scorpio full moon is one of those conditions. Not because the full moon is gentle. It is not gentle. Scorpio is the sign of depth, of excavation, of the material that lives below where ordinary awareness reaches. But the excavation itself is the release. When Pluto presses down on both lights in a full moon in Scorpio, what it is pressing is the stored layer, the layer underneath the story. The layer underneath even the most sophisticated psychological understanding you have developed about this journey. The purely physical, pre-verbal, pre-cognitive layer where the body has been holding the unprocessed weight of the last however many months of separation. That is what you felt last night. And, this morning, that is the physical sensation you cannot quite name. It is the body beginning to let something go that it has been holding for a very long time. Eugene Gendlin, whose research at the University of Chicago produced one of the most significant discoveries in psychotherapy in the 20th century, found that the clients who improved in therapy were not the ones who understood their psychology most clearly. They were the ones who could feel a specific kind of interior, physical sensation that he called the felt sense, a whole body knowing. The sense of an issue, a relationship, a difficult experience that lives in the body as a complex, slightly vague, physically real sensation before it has been organized into concepts or words. Gendlin spent years developing a practice he called focusing which was essentially a structured way of directing attention to the felt sense and allowing it to speak on its own terms. What he found was that the felt sense, when attended to with the right quality of gentle, non-demanding curiosity, shifts. It does not stay where it is. It releases, and when it releases, something in the person shifts with it, not because they understood the issue better, because the body had space to complete something it had been trying to complete for a long time. What you are carrying right now, in the days following this full moon, is a felt sense of this connection, of him, of what has happened between you, of the specific quality of the longing and the grief and the love and the exhaustion and the cellular level recognition that still, even now, even after everything, does not fully leave. It is in your body as a physical thing, not a thought, not a feeling in the emotional sense, a physical, located, real thing that lives somewhere between your throat and your solar plexus and is doing something today that it was not doing a week ago. Pay attention to it, not to analyze it, to feel it, to let it show you what it is doing. Something needs to be said about him in this context that is not said often enough. He is doing this too, not consciously, not with the language or the framework or the awareness that brings you to a video like this one, but his body is also inside the Scorpio full moon. His body is also being pressed by Pluto in Aquarius, squaring both lights. His nervous system is also receiving a signal from the cosmos that the stored layer needs to surface. And his body, like yours, has been holding something since the moment of recognition that has never been fully metabolized. The difference is that he does not have a container for it. The divine masculine in this dynamic is, in most cases, significantly less practiced at the kind of interior attention that allows somatic material to move through rather than getting stuck. Not because he is less sensitive, which is the assumption that gets made and which is almost always wrong. The divine masculine in a twin flame connection is often extraordinarily sensitive. The sensitivity is precisely the problem. A sensitivity that has never been given adequate container will organize the nervous system around suppression rather than around processing. The feelings that arrive too large to be held will be pushed down, not because he is unfeeling, but because the alternative, feeling everything fully, without a framework and without support, is more than the unprepared system can do. What Levine described as the freeze response is not emotional numbness. It is somatic activation that has been locked down rather than allowed to complete. The animal in danger that cannot flee and cannot fight will freeze. And the freeze is a protective state, a genuine survival adaptation, but it traps the activation inside the body rather than allowing it to discharge. The person in a freeze response is not peaceful. They are in a state of suspended activation. They may look calm from outside. They may even feel numb from inside. But underneath the numbness, the body is still running on high, still holding everything it has been holding, still waiting for the conditions that would allow the locked energy to move. The Scorpio full moon is not gentle with that. Pluto pressing down on both lights does not respect the management structures the divine masculine has spent years building. It presses through the outer layers to the stored material underneath. And he is feeling that right now in his body in ways he may have no vocabulary for at all. As restlessness, as a low-level agitation that has no obvious cause, as an inexplicable urge to do something physical, to move his body, to work with his hands, to run or drive or exhaust himself in some way that has nothing to do with the conscious awareness of why. As an inability to sleep at the usual depth, as a quality of aliveness in the chest that he may have been trying to outrun for months. He is not running from you. He is running from the activation, from the body's attempt to surface and complete what has been frozen and stored in the specific region where he keeps the largest and most overwhelming thing he has ever felt, which is the connection with you. Levine's research identified what he called the completion response, the sequence that the body wants to move through when activation that was frozen in the past finally gets the signal that it is safe to complete. It is often physical, often involves movement, trembling, heat, breath change, tears that arrive without an obvious emotional trigger, the sense of something releasing that the person cannot name but can feel. It can look from outside like nothing, like a person sitting quietly, slightly still, eyes soft, not doing anything visible. From inside, it is an enormous event. He may be in the early stages of that right now. Under this full moon, in the days following it, something in his body is beginning to complete what it has been holding. And the completion, when it happens, does not announce itself as a revelation about the relationship. It announces itself as a physical event, as something moving in the body that has been locked there. When that happens in enough of the stored material, the behavior changes. Not because he decided to change, because the body, having completed something, is no longer organizing him around the containment of that thing. Here is the thing about somatic change that distinguishes it from every other kind of change, including the psychological change that so much of this journey's guidance focuses on. It is not voluntary. You cannot decide to have a somatic release. You cannot will your body to let go of what it has been holding. You cannot achieve it through understanding or through spiritual practice alone or through making the right choices or doing the right things. The body moves on its own timeline according to its own readiness, in response to conditions that it determines rather than conditions that the conscious mind chooses. This is both the most frustrating thing about somatic work and the most liberating. Frustrating because you cannot force it. You cannot make your body let go of the weight of the separation on a schedule that the mind has decided would be convenient. The body does not answer to the mind's timeline. It answers to its own readiness, its own assessment of safety, its own deep biological intelligence about when the conditions are right for the stored material to begin moving. Liberating because it means the body's movements are real in a way that decided changes are not. When the body releases something, it releases it. Not because you talked yourself into it, not because you made a decision to release it, not because you performed a version of moving on that your mind constructed to protect your dignity. Because the body finished something it was working on. That kind of change is complete in a way that intellectual or emotional changes rarely are. You cannot unfeel it. You cannot argue yourself back to where you were before. The body's completed work stays completed. Bessel van der Kolk, whose research on the physiology of trauma and recovery became one of the most widely read works in psychology of the last 30 years, found that the methods of healing that worked most reliably were the ones that engaged the body directly rather than working exclusively through the mind. Not because the mind was unimportant, but because the body keeps an account that the mind cannot access through thought alone. The healing that lasts has to happen in the body where the material was stored. Van der Kolk documented specifically the way that intense relational experiences, including those involving profound recognition, loss, longing, and the specific grief of a connection that exists but cannot be fully inhabited, create somatic imprints that persist long after the mind has done its best to process the experience cognitively. The body holds a record that the mind's processing does not erase, and that record can only be updated by the body itself. What this full moon is doing is giving your body permission. The Scorpio energy pressing down through Pluto's square is not subtle and it is not optional. It is the kind of cosmic pressure that reaches the body's stored layer directly, bypassing the mind's management system, creating the conditions for something to move that the mind alone could not have moved. You do not need to do anything with this except notice it. Except allow your attention to move into your body rather than staying, as it usually does, in the analysis of him and the connection and what it means and what comes next. Except practice the quality of attention Gendlin called focusing, which is gentle and curious and non-demanding and present to what is physically here right now, in this body, in this specific location, in the chest or the throat or the belly, in this moment. That attention is not passive. It is the most active thing you can do with this transit, and something in your body already knows that. There is a reason you cannot fully trust your own assessment of where you are in this journey. You are too close to it. You have been inside this specific emotional field for too long to see it clearly from inside. The human memory system, particularly under conditions of emotional intensity, does not archive experience neutrally. It compresses the hard periods and loses the details of growth in the blur of difficulty. You have grown more in the last months than you can see from where you are standing, and the lack of visible progress, the way this can feel from inside like spinning, is partly the absence of a record that shows you what has actually been moving. This is exactly why I want to mention something that has been sitting with me as I have been watching this community work through their journeys. You have been doing the work. You show up here, you keep going. But you have no way to see it. No external record of how far you have traveled. No documentation of the signs that arrived and what they meant. No stage tracker that tells you precisely where you are, rather than leaving you in the permanent uncertainty of thinking you might be anywhere from the beginning to the end. The Twin Flame Journey Tracker and Progress Workbook was built for this moment. Not the beginning of the journey, when everything is raw and new. This moment. The mid-separation, the Scorpio full moon, the days when your body is doing things your mind cannot explain and you need something solid beneath you to stand on. 39 pages, an 8-stage journey tracker so you can locate yourself precisely instead of guessing. A synchronicity log because the body signs and the meaningful coincidences that arrive during a transit like this one deserve to be documented, not lost in the next difficult week. A daily self-love practice that keeps you centered in your own body during the phase when your body is the primary site of transformation. Weekly reflections and monthly reviews that create visible evidence of the growth that the mind keeps losing track of. The link is below. Here is what somatic experiencing as a framework says about the relationship between body release and what follows it. When the body completes what it has been holding, the nervous system's baseline changes. Not overnight, not in one full moon, but across successive releases, across the slow accumulation of completed responses rather than frozen ones, the window of tolerance expands. The amount of activation the system can hold without going into overwhelm grows. And the direct consequence of that expansion is a change in capacity for intimacy. Intimacy. Not in the simplified sense of physical closeness, but in the sense Levine and van der Kolk both point toward, the capacity to remain present in the experience of full contact with another person, to feel the intensity of genuine recognition without the nervous system treating that intensity as threat, to stay in the felt sense of connection rather than having to flee it or freeze inside it. That capacity is physiological. It lives in the nervous system's current window of tolerance. And it can only grow through the body's own process of completing what has been frozen. This is why the journey asks for time. Not because healing is slow in the way that a wound heals slowly, which implies a passive waiting, but because the body has its own pace, its own sequence, its own order of operations for the material it needs to process before the capacity for full contact becomes available. You cannot rush that pace. You can only create the conditions for it. You can only stay present in your own body. Notice what is moving and what is releasing and what is still held, and trust that the body's intelligence is doing exactly what it needs to do in exactly the right sequence. The body that is completing its release under the Scorpio full moon is not further from the connection. It is closer to the capacity for it than it has ever been, and the mind that is still 3 days behind is going to catch up. There is something about this transit that gets missed in conversations focused exclusively on timing, on the when of reunion, on the external markers of progress in the connection. Those conversations focus on the visible, on the behavior and the contact and the signs that arrive in the external world. And those things matter, but they are downstream of the somatic process. They are what happens after the body has done its work. After enough of the frozen material has completed, after the nervous system's window of tolerance has expanded enough to hold what full contact actually requires. You're inside the upstream work right now, the work that nobody can see, the work that happens below the level of visible behavior and the body's quiet and persistent processing of everything it has been holding. The work that the Scorpio full moon is pressing forward, not gently but thoroughly, reaching the stored layer and creating the conditions for. movement that the mind alone could not have created. What comes after is not something you need to manage or engineer or plan. It is something you need to be in your body for. Because the body moves first. And when it moves, and when his body moves alongside it, which it is doing right now, whether he knows it or not, what was stored begins to complete. What was frozen begins to thaw. What has been held in the chest and the throat and the belly of this connection in both of you begins to surface and to finish the motion that was interrupted at the beginning of the separation, back when the recognition arrived too large and too overwhelming for either nervous system to hold in real time. The full moon in Scorpio, with Pluto pressing down and Mercury slowing into the body intelligence of Taurus, is pressing that motion forward. Not asking your mind to figure anything out, asking your body to finish something it already knows how to do. You have been waiting for a sign. The sign has been in your chest this whole time. Stay with it. The link to the personal reading is below. The link to the workbook is there too. And wherever you are in this journey, whether you can feel the body's movement clearly today or you are still waiting for the language to arrive, I want you to know this. The fact that you are here, that you kept showing up, that you did not stop listening for what this journey is trying to teach you, that is not small. That is the body's own form of knowing. The knowing that keeps bringing you back even when the mind has run out of reasons. Trust it.